Street raised, I was brought up where the G stayed. Peep game, those who didn't catch one to your brain. Stay in your lane, never wolfed it, boy, I never fake. Watch them break, watch them fall, still I remain. Never change, never try to come and rearrange. Never hate, never tripping on somebody's plate. That shit is lame, leave that type of shit for the dames. The streets don't play, oh catch up, watch your life escapes. One game, homie, that you shouldn't play. There's real soldiers in the streets gunning every day. This shit is normal in the vital part of every day. It ain't great, but I'm loyal, so I'll never change. I keep repeating, but I mean it, never lose your way. Heed the warning and the missing just for talking brave. Fuck my enemies, two faces and all the snakes. Now for this matter, just name the time and name the place. We'll get it active, fuck the gap, and I'm in face to face. Real gangsters never fold, then we never shake. I was brought up to.
You are now watching M.O.D Entertainment.
Alright, G-Life, as we continue the list and countdown of our street local neighborhoods, we actually have to be sliding on through to the area of San Diego, SD County. You already know San Diego, home to dozens and dozens of neighborhoods, thousands and thousands of gang members. That's how the SD be rocking. And to be more exact, we'll be heading towards the ocean side of SD. Yes, Oceanside is home to several neighborhoods, well respected. Barrio Pozole. You got the Mid Valley Riders. You got the Oceanside Wikisureños. You got a bunch of neighborhoods in Oceanside. Don't ever get it twisted. Should be cracking. And this is home to one of these street local neighborhoods, which is known as the CSTLS. Not to be confused with Clarence. Not to be confused with Clara. This is known as the Center Street Locos. Center Street Locos is a well-known, well-respected barrio that has been right here in Oceanside for quite some time. As a matter of fact, one of the original neighborhoods and well-known neighborhoods out of Oceanside when it comes to Hispanic gangs. You know what I mean? You think of, when you think of Oceanside, off the top, you think of, Barrio Pozole, and you think of like Center Street. You know what I mean? These are neighborhoods that have already been well right here for a cool minute and have been doing their thing. You know what I mean? Now, their barrio is everything that's from, obviously, Center Street, that goes through their neighborhood. From Center Street all the way to Hornet Street. From Hornet Street, their territory still extends all the way to Wisconsin Avenue. Wisconsin Avenue, their territory still extends all the way to Vine Street. Vine Street all the way to Birchley Place. Birchley Place, all the way... their territory still extends all the way back to Vine and back to Center Avenue. So throughout Garfield Street, throughout Division Street, throughout Missouri, throughout Grant Street, Minnesota Avenue. All of that is what's considered their barrio, you know what I mean? But obviously on Center Street is their home dojo, their home domain, there, like what Center and Division, Center and Grant, all of that. It's what's considered the Center Street neighborhood. And this neighborhood is awfully large. There are a few hundred members to them. So they're one of SD, pretty large neighborhoods. And obviously because they've been here for quite some time already. And continue to still represent right there for the Center Street locals and still keep putting theirs on the map. Neighborhood. We actually have to travel to the southeast of San Diego, the SD. You already know San Diego being a very notorious, treacherous area. It cracks the SD, You know what I mean? It has old school barrios. It has a gang. It's just like LA, bro. You know what I mean? Shit be popping over here for sure. In the southeast, very notorious area within San Diego. Gang infested. The ghetto. The slums. You get your head blown right here, my boy. You got a gang of neighborhoods. Hispanic, black, all of that, bro. You get a little bit of everything over here. And the next barrio, the barrio that we can find right here, the counterpart to the East Market, is the Varrio VMS or MLS. Either one, you can see it. It's right. Barrios have different ways of writing their neighborhoods, but it stands for Barrio Market Street or Market Street Locos. You know what I mean? And their barrio is located right here in the southeast on the Mount Hope area. Where the Mount Hope Cemetery is at, where the park is at, is where you're able to find the Market Street neighborhood. The Market Street neighborhood has already been right here since the late 70s, early 80s when this neighborhood was established. Now, this neighborhood is not as large like some of these other SD centers. You don't see them up as much as like some of these other San Diego is because they're not as old as some of these other barrios because, SD is an area that, has a lot of old neighborhoods too, like National City, like Logan Heights. Gangs that have already been right here established for long time. So they're not as old as them, but don't get it twisted, homie. They have their heads. They hold it down. These guys ain't no suckers. You know what I mean? They definitely put in work for theirs, and been putting theirs on the map. Now, this barrio, it's not a small neighborhood, not a large neighborhood, it's an average sized neighborhood. At least from what I was told, is there roughly several, like 100 and something members to them. So, they do have, riders, for theirs. Don't ever get it twisted. The Market Street ain't playing, homie.
Now, to find the next barrio on the list, we actually have to be maneuvering our way to the city of Downey. Yes, Downey does have barrios, despite what individuals want to say. Downey has, several neighborhoods to it. And one of this being a street local neighborhood, which is the barrio MSTLS. Now, what does MSTLS stand for? It stands for Margaret Street Locals. Barrio Market Street Locals is a real barrio that has been well established right here since the later 80s, early 90s when this neighborhood was established. It was roughly a very small neighborhood. I was told up to 25 to 30 members max. Right in the city of Downey, people have to keep it in mind. Just because the city looks nice doesn't mean that it is nice, and just because it's nice now doesn't mean that it was always like that. Back then in Downey used to crack, homie. Don't get it twisted. But this was a real barrio that held it down for theirs in their area. Don't ever get it twisted because their territory was pretty extensive. Where they were at. Their territory stretched everything that was from Lakewood Boulevard. It would head down to Gray Road, and from Gray Road all the way to Coldbrook Avenue. Their territory still stretched out to Hall Road. From Hall Road to Margaret Street. Obviously, Margaret Street being the heart of their hood. So what's like Bellflower Boulevard, Hall Road, Adamore, Lowell Street, but Margaret, like I said, Lakewood Boulevard and Margaret was the heart of their hood, their main domain, their dojo. That's where they got it on and cracking. Like I said, small piece of territory, but nonetheless, their area where they held it down, and the Margaret Street locals, represented.
Now, this next neighborhood on the list is a little bit different, but I'm going to add it to this list because I know it's going to get mentioned. So that's the reason why I'm going to be adding them to this list, which is the barrio OLS. OLS translating to Orchard Locos. Not to be confused with Orca Locos, it's a different neighborhood. Orchard Locos is a well-known neighborhood that's been right here in the city of Southgate since the later 80s, early 90s when this neighborhood was established. Now, I know sometimes you see it written Orchard Street Locals. I know, sometimes they do say Orchard Street Locals, but Orchard Locals is the more recognizable title for it, OLS. But yes, sometimes you do see it, the OSTLS, so Orchard Street Locals, because at the end of the day, they are named after Orchard Street. You know what I mean? That is what they're named after. Orchard Locals is... their territory is everything that's from Santa Fe. Their territory extends all the way to Firestone. Their territory goes all the way to Long Beach Boulevard. To Ardmore Avenue. But Orchard and Santa Fe, or Orchard and Long Beach, is the heart of their hood, their main domain, their dojo. Right there on Orchard, obviously, on Orchard Place. That's where they started. And from what I was told, they did start off as a crew, outlaws. I think that's what it was. And then it transitioned into a neighborhood. You know what I mean? Just like everybody else. And this neighborhood was always roughly a small neighborhood, from at least from what I was told, about 65 members to them. And they do have another branch in the city of Bell. So in Bell, they did have another branch, a lot more smaller over there. I heard that there were up to 15 members over there in Bell. But this is where they started at in Southgate. You had them in both locations. And like I said, it's a real neighborhood that continues to still be up and have members that represent still for it and hold it down for that Orchard Locals. Shout out to Popeye out of that Orchard Locals, and shout out to the homies that still hold it down for the Orchard. Another neighborhood that we have that's similar to the other one that's different, but I'm going to mention it here because I know it's going to get brought up, which is the Varrio Haskell Street Locals or Haskell Locals. You see it Haskell Locals more than anything. But yes, it is known as Haskell Street Locals, but Haskell Locals is the way that it's referred to more often than not. And they are located right here in the city of Van Nuys, already in the outskirts of Van Nuys. And their territory is everything that's from Satakoy to Woodley, Woodley all the way to Vanoan all the way to Haskell Avenue and back around. But obviously on Haskell Avenue is their main domain, their dojo, the heart of the hood. That's where they get it on and crack it. So what's Haskell and Cohasset, Haskell and Valerio, Haskell and Sherman Way, that's what's considered Haskell. Obviously, I do realize that the Logan Heights neighborhood is there and a lot of other neighborhoods is jam-packed. So it does get hectic and chaotic just because there's so many neighborhoods jam-packed in the same area. It's like sardines, bro. You know what I mean? But yes, this barrio was always a smaller barrio, at least from what I was told, up to 45 members at its max. But they still are around. They are still in an active neighborhood. Don't get it twisted. They still have active little homies from this barrio. Not that many, but still, nonetheless. And yes, they still be right there representing for the HLS, a real neighborhood that was established here in the 80s, that it was established, and continue to still represent theirs, because I heard people try to say that it wasn't a real neighborhood. No, it is a real neighborhood. You know what I mean? It just was one of the Valley's more smaller neighborhoods. But I know homies out of this barrio, they got down-ass homies from this neighborhood that still hold it down and represent for theirs, These guys ain't no suckers. But that's what's up with the HLS, the Haskell Street Locals. And of course, only because I know it's going to get mentioned in the comments, I will be briefly covering these neighborhoods because at one point they were homeboys and at one point, they were a part of this and, are still nonetheless within these areas. So I got to cover them. Now, for this neighborhood, we have to slide on through to the area that is known as Boyle Heights, the east side. This one obviously being a little different because obviously they're a Hispanic neighborhood, but they're not Southerners, you know what I mean? Which is known as the OSL. OSL translating to Opal Street Locals 15. The 15 standing for the 15 letter in the alphabet, which is the O, Opal. Obviously, they on that list and they roll solo bolo in their own program, their own thing. But yes, they are right here in the east side, located in the area of Boyle Heights, you know what I mean, where this barrio was established. Since the later 80s, early 90s, it was one of these, football teams that made the transition into neighborhood when, it was all going down. And at one point, they were homeboys. I remember seeing Opal Street Locos 13, and then it just, whatever, and ended up becoming, Opal 15. It's just the way it is, you know what I mean? And their territory is obviously right there in the danger zone, surrounded by, dozens and dozens of neighborhoods. It'd be rough right there, bro. I ain't even gonna lie. But their territory, it's not massive, but it still nonetheless is theirs, which is everything that's from Grande Vista to 8th Street. 8th Street, the territory still extends all the way to Calzone Street. Calzone Street, their territory still heads towards where the freeway outskirts is at. So throughout Bestwick, throughout Lorena, Concord, in that dead end where they hang out, where they do their thing, but obviously the heart of their hood, their main domain, their dojo is throughout Opal, so that would be Opal and Lorena, Opal and Concord. Obviously, the dead end. Opal and Esperanza, and all that. And this neighborhood did get to be a large neighborhood. At least from what I was told, there are roughly more than 80 members to the Opal Street Local, so they did have a number to them. And they do still continue to be active. I could still see their activities. So they still remain around and holding it down for their Opal Street Locals. Now, the next neighborhood on the list is another one of these unique solo bolo neighborhoods. This one obviously being a little bit more different because this one was a lot more smaller and it was a clica off of another barrio, which is known as the LSTLS Lowell Street Locals. Lowell Street Locals 12. The 12 obviously being in the 12 letter in the alphabet, which is the L. It's a common thing right here. Lowell Street Locals. is the name of the barrio, which was a click off of El Sereno that broke off to do their own thing when different disputes on how they wanted to run their neighborhood, and because of a certain incident that I won't be talking about, occurred, and putting them on the list, and now they just do their own thing. There were no, from at least from what I have gathered, is that there were no more than like about 40 members to this neighborhood. But from what I have heard, that they still are around. They still hold, a presence, a very small presence, but nonetheless a presence right there in the area of El Sereno on Lowell Street. You know what I mean? Where they've been holding it down. Obviously, they wear the color green, green raggers. You know what I mean? You could check out the guy Bandit, his story on here. You know what I mean? Pretty interesting. But yeah, the Lowell Street Locos is another locals street local neighborhood that be holding it down right there in El Sereno for theirs, and putting theirs on the map right there.